A sixth consecutive AFC Championship game turns into the fourth Super Bowl appearance for the Kansas City Chiefs in 5 years. We're here to talk about it on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Soren Petro, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager with you. We will get into just exactly how impressive is this, more about the Chiefs' defensive game plan, the Chiefs' game plan overall, or more about the Ravens not getting it done. Patrick Mahomes, has he learned to be a game manager? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? How impressive was Steve Spagnuolo? How about Travis Kelce turning the clock back? Are the Chiefs, is this their most impressive run to the Super Bowl? Is the AFC just done? They can't beat the Chiefs this year. When will they? How big a loss is Charles Omenihu for the Chiefs? Will we ever see Kadarius Toney in a Chiefs uniform again? And should the Chiefs be worried about Andy Reid retiring? We'll talk about all of it right now on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You're listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Eric Eager is the vice president of research and development for Sumer Sports. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, Kansas City's nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor, making parking lot problems disappear since 1994. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. Now, here are the hosts of the best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Eric Eager, and Soren Petro.
Well, we all knew we'd be here, right? It's just a no-brainer. You just plan on it. You book it. Kansas City Chiefs back in the Super Bowl. We all had a pick, right, Eric? All of us. We were all over the Chiefs in this one, weren't we?
I mean, I was off by a field goal, so I'm not that smart.
Eric had him losing to Buffalo. Don't give him any credit for that.
I did change my mind by Friday's show. So on the program picks, I am 3-0, Petro. But yes, I did have them losing by 1 to the Bills on this show. But I did, I also nailed the Lions score. I said they'd lose by 3.
Your Super Bowl pick, weren't they? Start of the year?
They were. That was close. I was close.
I don't know, Jeff, if you understand. That's how this is called hedging your bet. Yeah. On one show, you pick one side. On the other, you pick the other. And then you come back on either one. Either beat your chest on it one and come back to the other one.
Go to Sumer podcast to get the tiebreaker, right?
Who'd you have on the Sumer podcast?
We don't pick games on that show. Me and Thomas just talk about front office stuff. So
you don't ever on any of the podcasts say, I think this team's going to win.
I had on my betting podcast, the Hammer Betting Network, I'm a small minority owner in. I had under 44.5 in the Chiefs game. That was the one pick I gave out in that game.
Okay.
Worst promo ever for a Sumer Sports podcast, by the way.
No picks. I kind of like it in a welcome back. We're sponsored by FanDuel.com. FanDuel.com/hammer. Like we don't like. That's the one show where you're gambling free. The Sumer Sports Show, Eric Eager and Thomas Mitchell.
Yeah, listen, I'll take it. It's fine. It doesn't always have to be about gambling. Does this have to be, Jeff, more a conversation in winning the AFC Championship game about the Chiefs and what they did, or more a conversation about what the Ravens didn't do? Which one is a bigger topic here?
Well, I think we all agreed last week that if the Ravens were going to lose, they were going to have to play a role in this, right? It was going to have to be some turnovers, some bad Lamar. Little did we know they were going to play a starring role in this production. But that said, the Chiefs won the game. I mean, this is more what the Chiefs did. I mean, we can sit here and talk about all the different situations that didn't play out for the Ravens and some of the bizarre game planning they put into this game and the way Lamar played. But the Chiefs made a lot of winning plays in that game, and that's what I took away from it, which was, the Jarius Sneed's forced fumble was one of the best defensive plays of the year. They obviously got the big interception on the triple coverage, but, he threw in the triple coverage, but something tells me they actually baited him into doing that, showed a look that made him feel like he could make that play. And then obviously Charles Omenihu had the forced fumble early in the game. They didn't convert on that, but they actually had a lot of winning plays on defense alone. And that to me speaks to, Steve Spagnuolo had a great game plan. I think offensively they had a really good game plan too, which was to play a lot more conservatively and not give the Ravens any opportunities to make plays on defense. And so while the Ravens did a lot to help the cause, the Chiefs won the game.
Yeah. Eric, what do you? Let me just first say this, Jeff. One thing I'll put in there is, weren't you the one that when we talked about defense, you said you prefer takeaways, not turnovers?
Yeah.
Okay, so why isn't it takeaways for the Chiefs? Why was it turnovers when you described it with the Ravens?
I just said they took the ball away. I just said Jerry Lee made one of the greatest defensive plays of the game that
that's true.
They baited Lamar into throwing interception, and Charles I didn't say they gave the ball away. I said they had turnover. I said the Chiefs did all that.
They did have turnovers, but I from a defensive standpoint, and you like defense. I mean, the Chiefs' defense was the story. Was it? That what you talked about, all the different plays. I do think the one you talked about, Snead, is important because if that doesn't get knocked out, we got a tie game.
Yeah.
Right. So there's kind of this perception around Kansas City that this was somehow an ass kicking, and that's not really the case. Eric, what do you think? More about the Chiefs, more about the Ravens?
The Chiefs played phenomenally. They did their part. Both defensive coordinators threw gas the whole game. Steve Spagnuolo, terrific. I think you look back at the roster building of Brett Veach, that plays a big part in this. Nick Allegretti. Obviously the depth defensively, no Willie Gay, no Derek Nottie, eventually no Charles Omenihu. Depth losses that would have killed them years ago were fine this round. Obviously no Brian Cook in this game as well. We've long since incorporated that loss. But anytime a 5-point home favorite, the 1 seed, loses, they play a part, as Jeff said. And I know on your show today, when you were talking with Sam, you said there must have been looks that the Chiefs were giving the Ravens that made them want to throw the football. But this kind of struck me. I don't know if you guys remember that Super Bowl with the Steelers and the Packers, when Bruce Arians looked like he was trying to put Big Ben in the Hall of Fame, where he's like, I'm going to prove this guy is one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. And I felt like Todd Monken was trying to prove to the whole world Lamar Jackson is the same caliber of player as Patrick Mahomes, when all Lamar Jackson had to be was Lamar Jackson, himself, good, very good quarterback to win that game. The first design run to Gus Edwards was a big play. The first design run to Lamar Jackson was a big play. And I know the Chiefs got up, but it wasn't like they were up 14-0. They were up 7-0 and then 14-7. And that team got out of their game plan. And I was hanging out I was at a league convention this week, and I was talking to somebody on the Ravens Saturday. I'm like, if you guys get down 2 touchdowns and you guys still aren't running the ball, you're messing up. This team is begging you to do this. And so I love the Chiefs. They obviously took advantage of it. That's a sign of a great team. But the Ravens really did screw up, I think, in the way that they played right into the Chiefs' strengths and ignored the Chiefs' weaknesses on defense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was a great day for the Ravens coaching staff. I mean, I'll say that. And I think you do have to get the running backs involved more. I think there is something to the fact that Steve Spagnuolo clearly, had something up his sleeve. I mean, they came at him from all directions, and this was supposed to be the prove-it game for Lamar Jackson, where if he got to the Super Bowl and won it, he'd have 2 MVPs in 1 Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes, 2 MVPs and 2 Super Bowls. And it'd be like, hey, is this the duel? Is this the matchup? Is this the Brady and Manning, Mahomes and Lamar Jackson? And whether it's because his coaches let him down or he couldn't handle it, he could not handle what was being thrown at him because he had a lot of time. And maybe it's this is the first time let's ding the Ravens front office. he was back there for a long time. They played kind of a containment rush, and he didn't find guys. Either nobody could get open or he didn't know where to look. But, I mean, organizationally, the Ravens were bested in this one, no doubt. Right, Jeff?
Yeah, no doubt. And again, going back to what Eric said, look, if you watch the game, again, I'm not a big film all 22 guy. I always crack me up. People are sitting there watching film, don't even know what they're looking at. But you could watch that game and see how much open space there was in between the line of scrimmage and where the defenders were. And there was enough room there for him to actually take off and run for 5 or 6 yards if he wanted to do it. And he was sitting in the pocket for like 8-9 seconds at times. And so I think we all understand that that's a play calling thing. If you're calling route concepts that require that much time in the pocket to develop, you're calling bad plays. And the irony of it for them is that, the week before against Houston, they got blitzed a lot, and then they adjusted in the second half and got the ball out quick and let Lamar run around, and they made plays. I mean, it's, again, the Chiefs won the game, but it didn't make sense to be that arrogant with your game plan as to think, oh my God, you're out here trying to take advantage of these deep shots and you're going to attack the corners, which is the strength of the defense for the Chiefs, and you're going to succeed in that. To turn away from what you do best and to have 6 rushing attempts for your running backs, to have 80 total yards when the week before the Buffalo Bills ran for 180, and to do that against a defense that was playing primarily 5 and 6 DBs the entire game that's like coaching malpractice.
Yeah. Eric, if they play this game 10 times, who wins how many times?
I think it's 5-5. The markets were clearly wrong. I mean, the Chiefs, I think Sam said it really well on your show, but I also think we all got beer goggled into Lamar Jackson, right? Like, Lamar is a limited quarterback, and good on the Ravens for putting him in the position where we never saw the limitations all year. This Chiefs team has figured something out. And I still think the roster for the Ravens is slightly better, but the quarterback is much better for the Chiefs. And so if you play that game in Baltimore, I think it's a 50-50 game.
Jeff, you obviously are, you get heat for not being the Chiefs homer that
both on the bandwagon. That's fine.
That both Eric and I are. But why do you think? I mean, 6 conference championship games, 4 wins, 2 losses are in overtime. So, they're a couple of overtime games away from being in 6 consecutive championships, playing for 6 consecutive championships. Is it just Mahomes? Is that the difference? These teams are close. These games are close. And when it comes down to it, is it just Mahomes? Is it just Mahomes and Reid that keeps them, either winning all these games or at least taking them all the way to the wire?
They're a big part of it, obviously, but and I laugh at some of the comments because obviously fans are going to be fans. They want to believe that the Ravens were some fraudulent team that just showed up here as the best record in AFC. It's like Ravens were a really good team.
Yeah,
they deserve what they got. They're deserve to be the favorites. But yeah, I mean, they've learned. Here's what's happening right now with the AFC and NFL. Like, Patrick Mahomes is a super talented quarterback. Andy Reid is a Hall of Fame head coach. And they have been able to use all their powers at a time when there really isn't anybody else in the league that can compete with that. And so all these other teams are trying to grow up at a time when these guys have already got a huge head start on how to win football games. And so that is, it's very Brady-esque and Belichick in that way. If you go back to their run, it's like there was a lot of bad quarterback play in the NFL at the time. A lot of the great quarterbacks had retired. The Dan Marino, the John Elways, the Steve Youngs, the Troy Aikmans. And so there was this huge void that their brilliance was able to capitalize on. And I think you're seeing that happen now. I don't think there's going to be an entire Patrick Mahomes career where you're going to see Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Dak Prescott and whoever else just kind of stumbling around, not figuring it out. The Chiefs had to go through their own stumbles at the start of this run. We forget about that now. But when they played the Patriots in that first game, they lost because the Patriots knew how to win. And so to me, what you've seen this postseason is just another example of the Chiefs, as hard as it is for Chiefs fans to understand this, we're not the best team in the AFC on paper. They're the best team right now in the AFC because they know how to win games. And other teams don't know how to do that yet. That's the biggest difference going for them.
I will say this, though. I mean, this isn't Lamar Jackson's first playoff game, right?
No, but his first championship game.
First championship game, but 4 playoff games before this. This year wasn't Josh Allen's first time at the rodeo.
But Pat is 17. He has 4 times as many playoff games as Lamar.
But look at how those teams played in those moments, though. Look at how those quarterbacks played in those moments. You can look at both those games and say there were moments there where those quarterbacks of those teams could have done things that weren't as sexy, but win you games, right? But instead, they tried to be hyper aggressive and tried to knock the team out. The Ravens wanted to beat up on the Chiefs instead of win the game. That was obvious.
But I think that's part of their personality. I think that's what they try to do. I do think, listen, I think everything you're saying is true. I just don't know that I would put quite as much weight into it as you do. I do think the Ravens got caught trying to, hey, we kicked the Dolphins' ass, we kicked the Niners' ass, we're going to kick these guys' ass. They ain't that good, and we're going to handle them. And I think they got the ball, and as the game progressed, they kept trying to score 14 points instead of just trying to get the lead. I agree with you 100% on that assessment. And so I do agree that the experience helps the Chiefs. And to Eric's point about 17-4, it's 17-4 because Mahomes always wins.
Yeah,
like in the playoffs, when you lose, you go home. So yes, I understand that he has more experience, but it's because he's better. I'll come back to Mahomes and Reid. Is that the difference, right? Are all these teams as good or better in the other 52 plus staff and those two guys, or Mahomes, Reid, Beach? Mahomes, Reid, Beach, Spags.
I think not to interrupt, I think we have to start giving Brett Beach and the front office their flowers because, it's different now. It's different now because when your quarterback is on rookie money and you can overspend Sammy Watkins, overspend Frank Clark, you can, their 2 tackles got hurt in the Bucs Super Bowl. You can overspend Orlando Brown, overspend Joe Thuney. You can trade, you can do all these things. This is a mature roster from a team building standpoint. It is draft a guy in the first round at a premium position, and he is inactive because the guy you drafted last year is a 10.5 sack guy, right? The guy you took in free agency as a buy low guy is a strip sack guy and 7 sack guy in 11 games in Charles Omenihu. This roster, you have Drew Tranquill coming in taking a low ball deal because he wants to win a Super Bowl as the 4th linebacker on your team. Like this is I think that the first couple years where they're blowtorching the league, putting up 30 points a game, Mahomes is throwing 50 touchdowns, all this stuff. When you have all the weapons in the world, I think that's Reid and Mahomes being a cheat code. When the rest of the league catches up, and they have to the offense, right? Mike McDonald was throwing heat on Sunday against that offense in the second half. They had, as you guys said, 98 yards on 30 plays in the second half, or it was 90 yards on 38 plays, one of the two. But the resilience of this roster, the fact that, as we talked about earlier, they've withstood the injuries to guys like Thuney, to guys like Cook, Noddy, Gay, all those players, and they're still resilient to this. This is a Brett Veach Super Bowl too. And I think that this front office deserves a lot of plaudits for looking at this team with a sober eye after losing to the Bengals twice in a month in January of 2022 and saying, this is not good enough anymore. We need to change our approach. What won when Patrick was on rookie money is not going to win when Patrick is on real money. And they've done nothing but go to the lab and build a roster that, they traded the best wide receiver in the NFL, and they have 2 Super Bowls to show for it now. 2 Super Bowl appearances.
Yeah, and that's all true. But to go back to the point Soren was raising, which is, yes, they are drastically better than everybody else right now. But it's also they're playing in an era where they're not seeing the same level of competition that Tom Brady saw when he was in his prime. There's no Peyton Manning out there right now. There's no Ben Roethlisberger out right now. There's no Drew Brees out there right now.
You don't think
there may be?
Everybody who's good is in the AFC.
Yeah. But I'm saying they're not at the level of those players. The reason Tom Brady didn't go to 10 Super Bowls, you can not want to buy into that, but you also have to win
now that there's only one bye. Tom Brady got a bye every freaking year as the 2 seed.
But Eric, he was seeing Peyton Manning.
Yeah,
like,
but
Mahomes is also seeing what? Trevor Lawrence. He's seen Ryan Tannehill. He's seen Baker Mayfield. That's part of the story.
Yeah, but
I mean, Brady got Jake Plummer. He got but he got the other guys too. That's the reason why Aaron Rodgers.
But who? Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and here ended the list, right? Like you want to see like all these great quarterbacks he was facing. I categorically object to that. First of all, Peyton Manning was a hack that everybody bombed when he was 3-6 his first 9 playoff games and couldn't get by Tom Brady. Finally, he got by Brady, and then he tacked on Swiss at the end.
Twice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's unfair. You don't think when it's all said and done, Josh Allen's career is going to look a lot like Ben Roethlisberger's?
No, I agree with that. I'm just saying that they're not there yet. That's what I'm saying. It's like,
but they're not there yet because they keep losing. That's what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
Peyton Manning wasn't there till he was 30, 31. I heard Jeff Saturday say Peyton Manning didn't break through and go to the Super Bowl till after he was 30 years old. Josh Allen's 27, 28, and everyone's ripping him. Lamar Jackson, same thing. They keep running into Patrick Mahomes, and he's beating him. Tom Brady, he's doing the same thing Tom Brady did. And none of those guys were considered great. And when you're beating, who is it? Jake Delhomme.
Considered great.
Well, Rich Gannon, Cordell Stewart in your first years, right? And then
go deeper into the career. That's the point. You're making the same point I just made, which was he wasn't playing great quarterbacks at the start of his career.
Well,
I just said that's the whole point I make, that Tom Brady, and it's not, I'm not minimizing what Mahomes is doing. He's a phenomenal talent. It's like, to me, it's an easy answer. It's like, yeah, he and Andy Reid and Brett Veach are way ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
But it's the same place that the Patriots were with Brady and Belichick when they started their run. They were way ahead of everybody else because they were smarter and better.
I think we're seeing something kind of amazing, Eric, when it comes to Patrick Mahomes. Generally, you see a guy, and I think the Tom Brady career arc was great game manager, a great head coach, and great defense and great schemer. And then he became a playmaker later, right? As their receivers got better too, that was part of it. But, he was a game manager first. And I say that, I want to be clear, if anyone's hearing me for the first time, that is a compliment. That is part of being a quality. You can't be a good quarterback and not be a game manager. Every great quarterback was a game manager. Now, you can be more than that, but you have to be that to be a great quarterback. And I won't say that Patrick Mahomes didn't manage the game early in his career. It may have just been that his defenses were so bad that he had to be a swashbuckler. He had to score so much. So we didn't recognize the game management skills because it was always pedal to the metal, score every point you can because it's your only chance, kid. No. That's not how he played in this game. From Andy Reid celebrating the fact that he was taking sacks in the fourth quarter to keep the clock going, not throwing, and forget about throwing the ball away, which is what he did earlier in the game. No one's there. I'll scramble outside the tackle box. I'll throw it away. And we come back and we got a new down. We don't lose any distance. Late in the game, he's taking sacks to keep the clock going. It was the ultimate game management performance from him. It was not a big statistical day. Whether it was there all along or not, he is a great game manager in addition to all the other throws he makes, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, look, like Patrick Mahomes' best ability is not his arm strength. It's not his accuracy. It's not even his movement skills. It's his ability to find the best throw, right? And against a defense like that, the best throw sometimes isn't there. And I think, like, in that game, his ability to, and we said this, like, right when they were struggling, what were we saying? He's like, Patrick Mahomes' biggest strength was often his biggest weakness was he thought he could engineer a throw that was better than what's called. And I think they've been so much better in rhythm in this postseason than they have been almost all year. But Mike McDonald in the second half of that game took away anything that was going to be in rhythm for the Chiefs almost all game. And to Patrick's credit, instead of trying to engineer something that could have been risky, he decided to take away 40 seconds from the game and live to fight another day and trust the defense. And as we've said a number of times on the show, all three of us, this defense is good enough to win a Super Bowl. And as long as you play a clean game. And I know in Buffalo, Hardman had the turnover against Miami at the very end. Clyde had the turnover. No turnovers this week, right? And And like the Buffalo game, they went all the way till almost halftime before their first penalty. Like, this defense is good enough that if you play a clean game, even against the league's best team, you can win. And I think that Patrick was maybe the last person on this team to buy into that. But once he did, we saw the results of it on Sunday.
I'll take you back, and we talked about this on the radio this morning, to the Bengals AFC Championship loss. And his final throw of that season was an interception on a forced throw.
The Chiefs lost to the Bengals in
Chiefs lost to the Bengals. Yeah, Bengals beat them 2 years ago. And after that game, we played the sound that he came out and said, yeah, I wanted to give my guy a chance. Tyreek makes that play 8 out of 10 times. I would do it again. He said it twice. I would do it again. And when he said that back then, my feeling was that's the wrong answer. That's the wrong play in the situation. And what's happened since then? Not a sack or an interception in a playoff game from him. And Eric's right. It's like guys like him and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow to a certain extent. Joe Burrow doesn't have that level of talent that those guys have. Justin Herbert probably. They think they can do things, and they have to learn the hard way that they can't. And so I thought the game he played on Sunday was his most impressive game of the last 2 years, just because of what he was going against, the understanding of what a turnover or a negative play could mean in that situation. And you're right. Game managers don't get credit, but that's how you win championships. You look at his numbers over the last 5 playoff games. He hasn't thrown for 300 yards in any of them. He hadn't had 3 touchdowns passing in any of them. The last 300-yard game was against Jacksonville. But he's okay with understanding, like, it's important for me. I think he said it like last week. He said, it's like, I don't have to be the best quarterback with the biggest numbers and all the highlights and everything. I just have to be the best quarterback I need to be for my team to win the game. And so when you go to that level, that's a whole different level of quarterback play that elevates you beyond what I just said about the Josh Allens and Lamar Jacksons. They don't know that yet. They still think you win games by making a spectacular play in a key moment, and everybody talks about how great you are. In reality, it's the things you don't do that win you games. Tom Brady learned that lesson throughout his entire career because he didn't have that kind of talent. That's to me is like he played an amazing game on Sunday.
Yeah, no, I agree. What does he do different in playoff time, Eric? Is there something about playoff Pat? Is it just the stakes are higher? Is it that's where the coaching staff shines, where they unleash everything because there's no tomorrow, and so they're able to maximize his abilities? Why does he's one of the handful of quarterbacks that actually has better numbers in the playoffs than he does in the regular season. That's better defenses always, and he's putting up better numbers. Why does he seem to have another level to go to?
Yeah, I mean, it's, 538 always had this issue with their models, right? When you get all season, they'd have these models, and then you get to playoff time, and the Cavs were always underrated because LeBron just was a different player in the playoffs. And Patrick's, you said it on the radio, what is he, 9-1 ATS when a dog.
10-1 now.
Yeah. And I think that the number is 17-4 if he's favored by 3 or less or an underdog. I just think there's an element, and we've said it before, and everybody will make fun of me for saying this, but I think Andy Reid calls a better game when the other team is a better team too. And I think that helps. I think Andy Reid certainly helps Patrick. I also think that there's an element of, there are games where they clearly don't help Patrick out, and he's kind of working through stuff. And, I think that the great teams, the Patriots, as Jeff talked about, I think those teams work through their weaknesses during the season, meaning like they're not scheming guys open. They're not scheming. They're not hiding players. And I think in the playoffs, that makes them more resilient than teams like the Dolphins, for example, that have to hide a guy like Tua's weaknesses all year. I think when they face a good team, that ends up showing up. I just think all year this team is battle tested, and they get cross trained in that way, and that's who that team ends up being. And the fact that they're good enough to win 11 to 13 games, even though they don't bring their best stuff to most of the games, I think is obviously a product of how good he is. But I think it's just it's partially how good he is, but also they bring their best stuff to the playoff games.
The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete, nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Parking lot problems, making them disappear since 1994. Why risk accidents, liability in your parking lot, taking you away from the focus on your business? Brightly striped lot, a smooth lot, a well-designed lot will help keep accidents down and keep your business focused, keep your attention focused on your business. Keep your parking lot as safe as possible with Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Go to GannAsphalt.com for more details. One contractor, all things parking lots. How impressive was Steve Spagnuolo's defensive game plan, Jeff? I mean, is this is this something that should have a lot of teams going, maybe we should have looked at this guy as a head coach again?
It was a masterpiece. I mean, he's been masterful throughout the entire season, but he's gone to another level in the postseason. And, I think the easy thing to do is to bash Lamar for the way he played. But again, defenses have a lot to do with how quarterbacks play. And so when you see a guy dropping back like he was dropping back and waiting as long as he was waiting, part of that it's a bad play call. But also the other aspect of it is he was probably duped into thinking something was available to him that wasn't. And so all that time he's spending is trying to reconfigure his mind to what he's seeing. And that was the beauty of what Spagnuolo did. For him to put 5 or 6 DBs on the field against a running team, a team that's first in the league in rushing, with the best rushing quarterback in the league, he had to see something on film that told him when we show them these looks, they're going to take the cheese, to use that phrase. And I think someone mentioned it when I was doing the radio show this morning. The Ravens were very arrogant in their approach to that game. And I'm sure Spagnuolo saw some signs of that in the film study he was doing and said, you know what, if we go out here with these DBs and show him some man coverage looks, he's going to try to light us up. And that's what we want. And so, I thought it was to play those kind of mind games with a quarterback is, I hate to kind of keep referring back to Belichick and the Patriots, but that's what Belichick does really well. He's able to figure out not just what you're trying to do and what your schemes are and who you're trying to get open, who you want the ball to go to. He's trying to figure out how you think. And that's where Spagnuolo's genius has been this year. It's like he's got the tools, but he got into Lamar's head. He got into Josh Allen's head. And he did some stuff that kind of blew my mind in terms of just taking some chances that to speak to just the level of trust. You go back to Mahomes, and we're talking about Mahomes and where his greatness is. He's able to figure out who to trust in the postseason. And I think right now he trusts this defense probably more than anybody else on this roster. Even Travis, probably.
What were your thoughts on his effort on Spagnuolo's game?
Yeah, it was phenomenal. I think, again, who knows how much of it was baiting the Ravens into the game plan that they had or taking advantage of it. But, part of it is also the development. You look at the secondary, Edwards is a free agent no one wanted. Tranquil is a linebacker no one wanted. Gay and Bolton are second-round picks. Chanel's a third-round pick. The corners, Williams and Watson are 4th and 7th-round picks. Snead's a 4th-round pick. The development of those players is also incredible in addition to the game plan that he has. And the fact that he can be as multiple as he is while trusting. And then he has Deion Bush coming in because there was an injury, of course, and getting a big interception in that game. I think it speaks to the, sort of immense trust that he has in that group, and the fact that he can call. You remember when we first started this podcast 2 years ago, guys, remember we were talking about why are Daniel Sorensen and Ben Neiman playing, and it's all because Spags had to trust those guys to get lined up, and now the defense is the youngest defense in all of football, and he has complete trust in them. That to me is even more impressive than any one game plan, is the fact that they can call any game plan they want because they have a young athletic group of players that they all trust.
Offensively, Travis Kelce had a big day after, tales of his demise being greatly exaggerated in this game. 11 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown. How's he been able to turn back the clock, Jeff?
Just throwing the ball to him. A lot of times he wasn't open. They were just throwing the ball to him. And they decided what we said they had to do 7-8 weeks ago, which was you got 3 guys on offense you can trust. Pacheco, Rice, and Kelce. Give him the football. And so that to me is really what it is. I don't think he's any more open. I just think that Mahomes isn't saying, oh, well, someone's got him covered. I'm going to go to Sky Moore now. I'm going to go to Kadarius Toney or whoever, Richie James. Like, he's just like that first touchdown he caught. Like, he was covered. But it was a great throw, great back shoulder throw, great adjustment and catch by Kelce, and they executed it. And that's the thing that, that I think that is clear to me is they've just decided we're just going to ride with these guys. And that's just going to be what our game plan is. We're going to feed our best players over and over again. And certainly the rest helped at the, against the Chargers. Certainly he's motivated to end this season strong. And, probably his lady up in the stands, he probably wants all that to be, storybook ending and all that stuff. But end of the day, I just think he's getting more opportunities because there's fewer guys in the offense to go to. Like, I don't think it's a coincidence that, we'll talk about it later, that Kadarius Toney is not playing. I don't think it's a coincidence that Sky Moore is not playing. I think they said, let's start weeding these guys out. We'll say the right things. They're banged up. They just can't get on the field. But at the end of the day, they want the ball going to Kelce.
Hardman played 2 snaps on Sunday, by the way. Like, there's another part of it, too.
Yeah. Look at the throws they made to the other guys. Like, they threw it twice to MVS, and it was like the safest possible position to catch the football. They threw one to Justin Watson on a, kind of a speed cross route. He went in motion and took off. It's easy pass. Like the guys who can catch the ball, they're getting the ball. And Travis is one of those guys still.
How much of it is Rashee Rice has emerged as a real threat, and so now you can't just focus on Travis Kelce, Eric?
Yeah, I think that's big. I think Kelce the week off helped him. Being that that age and getting hurt in week 1 and being rushed back to week 2. Certainly wasn't great, and then being needed the whole year the way he was. But no, Rice is huge. I mean, he was certainly, and the fact is like another really impressive part about their ability to win is number 14 for the Ravens, Kyle Hamilton. I mean, we talk about players in the NFL, like that's a top 25 player in the league. As far as like when you try to run the bubble screens and all the stuff the Chiefs have had success with the last month, he erases most of those plays. And Rashee Rice at least gave them some explosiveness on those plays where they can get positive yardage. But in the second half of that game, he erased most of that stuff. And, Travis was able to counterbalance that a little bit. And he's been able to do that in the second half. I mean, he's looked really good this month. And I got to think that a lot of that is him being able to get the time off. And a lot of that is Rice. And some of that, like, look, the team doesn't, the opposition doesn't respect MBS anymore. And for the first time in a long time, he made them pay. And that was, that was a characteristic of the last time they played the Niners when MBS had 100 yards. That was the one team last year that challenged them and played single high. And, both he and Juju had 100 in that game. And it was good. I mean, it was the one play where they singled him up and they let him run deep and he got separation on the DB. And I think, that opened stuff up. Like the fact is like now, Travis, there's more room now that teams have to respect one of the wide receivers, which is Rice. There's more room for Kelce. There's more room for MBS. There's more room for Watson and the other guys.
We're proudly brought to you by our friends at Gann Asphalt and Concrete with free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, plus every project comes with a written warranty. Gann Asphalt and Concrete keeps your parking lot safer, helps your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expense. Find them online at GannAsphalt.com. That's GannAsphalt.com. This is the most impressive run, Jeff, no doubt, right, for the Chiefs to get to the Super Bowl. And if they win it, who's had a more impressive run than that with the caliber of opponents that they have faced by the DVOA, one of the metrics that are out there? This would be the toughest run. They say it'd be the toughest run everyone's ever made.
It'd be up there, but I would still say that 2007 Giants, most impressive run I've ever seen. All 3 games on the road, beating number 1 seed in Dallas. And they were the lowest seed, too. They were the 6th seed. So they beat number 1 seed.
5 that year, but yeah.
5. Okay, second lowest. They beat number 1 seed in Dallas. beat Brett Favre last game in Green Bay. Was Green Bay number one? Green Bay might have been one.
Green Bay was the 2. They beat Tampa Bay in the 4-5 game, and then they beat
Dallas.
They beat Dallas, and then they went to Green Bay and won that game in the elements, which is a tough place.
In the elements, and then perfect season Patriots. Like that's ain't no one beating that run. They were supposed to be destroyed. They were biggest underdog in the history of Super Bowl. Yeah, but yeah, the Patriots, what the Chiefs have done is certainly their biggest run since Mahomes has been here, and it's impressive because they've had to beat. If they win the Super Bowl, they would have beaten 2 1 seeds and a 2, right? Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, their most impressive run for them, for sure. Eric, where do you put it amongst some of the runs we've had in recent years?
Yeah, Jeff's right. I mean, anytime you can beat an undefeated team in the Super Bowl and beat the 1 and 2 seed on your way there, that's really impressive. I think some of this will be tainted by the fact, the DVOA thing, it doesn't account for the fact that Miami and Buffalo are a little bit banged up. This is a great run for the Chiefs. The fact that they've only given up 44 points in 3 games as well, when Tua led the league in passer rating or passing yards. Josh Allen was second in MVP voting, and Lamar is the MVP of the league. That is a huge, when you look at those 3 QBs that Patrick Mahomes took down, that's going to be top 5, at least in NFL history. And we also forget this, and I brought this up earlier in the show. Now that there are 7 playoff teams, you almost got to throw out anything from the 80s when there were only 5 playoff teams, and you got to throw out some of the earlier runs where a lot of the teams, I think Packers in 2010, where you go to Philly with Michael Vick, which is a really good football team. Then you go to Thomas Dimitroff's Atlanta Falcons at 13-3. Then you go to Bears and win there. And then you beat Steelers with Tomlin. That was a pretty good run as well. It's always going to be
guys on IR too, right?
Yeah, with Finley and Woodson broke his collarbone in the Super Bowl. And that team was, Ryan Grant was hurt that year. So that's another, but all of those are going to be 5 and 6 seeds by the very nature. Like Pittsburgh in 2005, when they went, to Denver. Pittsburgh in 2005 went to Cincinnati, to Indianapolis, to Denver, and then beat Seattle. That was another one. But as far as 3 seeds, this is probably the best 3 seed that has ever path that a team has ever taken. Yeah.
If the AFC can't beat this team, Jeff, when do we think that somebody's going to be ready to beat them? Is next year? We've mentioned they've got a lot of guys, the Chiefs do, that are headed towards free agency. They're not going to be able to keep all of them. In fact, they're probably not going to be able to keep most of them. Is this the last year of the window, or no? Is this if you couldn't get them this year, you're in big trouble?
Well, I think it's just as I was referring back to when Tom Brady started his run, and all of a sudden 2004 draft gives you Eli Manning, who beat him twice in Super Bowl, gives you Phillip Rivers, who was a competent rival, gives you Ben Roethlisberger, who won a couple championships during Brady's career and went to a third one, played for a third one. You're going to have other guys arrive along. So what's going to happen? Yeah, Chiefs are going to lose some key players. Once Chris Jones is gone, once Travis Kelce retires, when Andy Reid moves on, those guys aren't going to be with Patrick Mahomes throughout his entire career. And so they're going to have to keep drafting well, and they're going to have to hit some home runs in there too. Not just really good players, Pro Bowl level players, but guys who are future Hall of Famers. You need to keep adding those kind of players to your roster, and Brett Veach can do that. He's obviously a pretty good talent evaluator. But what we don't know is C.J. Stroud going to be the next great quarterback? Is he going to end up being what Eli Manning was to Patrick Mahomes, or is Caleb Williams going to be that guy? Will this draft give us 3 quarterbacks who can elevate into that level where we see Lamar and Joe Burrow and all these guys right now? The AFC is crazy right now with quarterbacks. That's the thing that's which is amazing about it, and it's getting crazier with coaches. And as much as we've dumped on the Chargers over the last few years, Jim Harbaugh is going to turn around that franchise. I guarantee you they will win with him there. And I guarantee you Justin Herbert will be a much better quarterback and a much bigger rival. Will be part of that Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen conversation with Patrick. So, yeah, I think that they have a huge head start, and it's got to be demoralizing for these teams to have blown their opportunities against the most vulnerable version of the Chiefs. But, time does kind of figure things out. And I think over time, you'll start to see more talent show up and more challenges appear. That's just the way the world works.
Where do you see the AFC having a shot, Eric? Is this the last go round of their window, or no? Is it just more of the same as we move forward?
Yeah, the Patriots had the 10 years, right, in between the back-to-backs, and so it's always hard. And to Jeff's point, there could be this quarterback draft. I like Drake May a lot. Caleb Williams seems to have a lot of talent. I would imagine somebody from Michael Penix, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix will be good. But the crazy part is the 2020 draft, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and Tua are all good, and they're all in the AFC, and it still hasn't mattered. And so, the whole thing for me is the Chiefs have figured out a way to win every single way. Young quarterback on rookie deal, quarterback with offense first, defense first, bad defense, good defense, bad offense, good offense. And well, Jeff's point is right. It's like the Chargers got to figure out just how to win, period. Right? They got to figure out how to win. The Bills got to figure out how to get over the hump. And the Bills have shot they're drawing blanks now. They've shot all their bullets. And who knows if they'll have any left. The Bengals, Higgins is probably gone. Their offensive coordinator's gone now. He's the coach in Tennessee. I don't know. I think it's a coin flip that the AFC is going to be any harder for the Chiefs moving forward.
Yeah, I think somebody's got to prove it. I do think Jim Harbaugh. You put me down on Team Jim Harbaugh. I think he's going to do a great job.
Yeah, and Joe Hortiz, the new GM that they got from Baltimore. I think this league is really stupid for not having hired Mike Borgonzi. Even Tillis, he's going to end up at a senior VP role with the Panthers. I think the league is really stupid for Joe Hortiz being one of the rare people from Baltimore getting a job too. This league likes to hire executives from the Bears and the teams that haven't won shit. And so good on the Chargers for hiring a coach that's won and an executive on a team that has actually built a roster or two. So I actually am bullish on the Chargers as well. But some of these teams, they just keep. It's oh, this guy did great work for Chicago. I look at Chicago's roster. I'm like, what? This team sucks.
Yeah. And that's kind of the whole point too, right? Is that I think the Chiefs, after the debacle that was Todd Haley and Scott Pioli, Clark Hunt said, I want a winning organization. And I'm going to go out and get a really good head coach, an excellent head coach. And then 5 years later, I'm going to they wound up with the best quarterback that we've ever seen. And so that's an organization saying, we want to do this. A lot of organizations talk a good game, and then when it comes down to making those moves, see Dallas Cowboys, they don't make them. They stay comfortable. They stand pat. And so, yeah, the Chiefs, that's their biggest mojo right there. If they're committed to winning.
Charles Omenihu out. How big of a hit is this, Eric?
It's pretty big. Omenihu has been very good for them. He's a good run defender. He rushes the passer well. He had the 7 sacks in 11 games. I have to look at the pressure numbers, but they're a good defense with him. They've been a good defense without him too. I think you're going to get some of Felix Anazuke-Uzama, who's been inactive all 3 postseason games, to rush the passer. But, look, you have one more game left. You're going to get probably more snaps out of Michael Dana. You're going to get more snaps out of Karlaftis and Chris Jones is probably going to play end to end in this game, right? And he was pretty gassed at the end of that Baltimore game. So you're just going to have to get these guys to step up a little bit. One benefit is in this game that people are not pricing in because we want to compare this to the 2019 Super Bowl. The Niners offensive line is not very good compared to what it has been in the past. It's basically Trent Williams and 4 average to below average players. And we saw, the Lions of all teams giving them pressure the other day. I think that they'll be okay. I think long-term, if he was injured a few weeks ago, I think it would have been more of a problem than being injured in this particular game.
Yeah. It's a hit, no doubt. And it will affect them, Jeff. Do you how much does it affect them? And it certainly affects their depth. And, we kind of thought they were losing one offensive lineman each week back in 20, and they kept overcoming it. And then all of a sudden they were all gone. the team that had 2 weeks to game plan for it, and they're able to really say, okay, this is how you beat this group. And that kind of blew up. I don't think we're clear there, but, it hurts. Chris Jones needs to be a menace, if Omenihu's not going to affect him.
Yeah, well, it makes it easier to obviously protect against Chris Jones, right? Now your double team is you're a lot more comfortable with that because you don't have to worry about the other edge being dominant. Now, Michael Dana has played well, especially early in the year, but Karlaftis can be handled. And yeah, you can create matches within your line now to deal with them in a way that you couldn't, 72 hours ago. I mean, I think it's a huge blow. I think it's a huge blow if the way that the Niners want to play offense, the ball's going to come out fast, right? And they're going to take advantage of all their weapons, and Purdy can move around. That's the one thing in playing this kind of an offense, which is very similar to what Miami does. Obviously, Mike McDaniel having been an ex-Niners assistant, you'll see a lot of the similar concepts. The difference, though, is that the quarterback can move. And they run the ball with a lot more power than Miami does. And so Omenihu's a good run defender, and so Derek Nottie not being there is a factor, right? He's not great by any stretch, but he's a big body. I think you need to. What's that?
I think he's a factor in that. It means other guys got to go more snaps.
Yeah,
and aren't as fresh.
Yeah,
but I'll take Mike Pennell over Derek Nottie any day.
Well, I'm just talking about from a depth standpoint.
No, but you're right.
Total bodies.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm with you 100% because it's death by 1,000 cuts.
Yep.
Right? It's like, okay, now everybody's a little more gassed because they got to play a little longer because Nottie's not there to rotate in. Now, Omenihu's gone. You mentioned the ball coming out quick. That's usually short throws. And he's 6'5", 6'6" tall, and bats balls down in addition to all the other things. And you lose that. So, you think back and it's like, okay, was there a third down play where the ball was batted? Yeah, Chris Jones got that one. It may have been Omenihu's turn this next week. And if that doesn't happen and it's completed to the tight end for the first down and it's a new set of downs or you're in field goal range, those little things add up. And that's my concern with Omenihu going down is he's a very good player. You lose that, but also the cumulative effect of having him go down, I think could be a problem as well. We ever going to see Kadarius Toney in a Chiefs uniform again, Jeff, or is the little TikTok or
I'd be surprised if he makes a trip to Vegas the way this is going.
Andy Reid said he'd be out there, meaning the practice field. I don't think there's any way.
No,
he's out there.
How can you look? I understand his frustration, and I think we all suspected that this was happening. That with him and Sky Moore, just like this is a nice way of saying you're benched, right?
Yeah,
we just won't put you in a position of having to defend yourself, but they can't rely on those guys. And so, but to go on Instagram Live, was it the night of or the same day or the day after the game? I don't know exactly what the timetable. I didn't see it, so I don't know the timetable of when it happened. But just
it was Saturday. It was before the game.
Okay, before the game. So yeah, to go on there and complaining about all this stuff, it's like you can't afford to have those kind of things happening when you're trying to win a championship. It's go time. You don't want to have a malcontent around. You don't have to be dealing with this kind of stuff. You don't want them around your players. Like, if I'm Andy Reid, I'm like, if you can make him stay home, keep his ass at home.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't say Saturday. I saw it Sunday morning before we started pregame at 9 a.m. So maybe it did come out Sunday morning. I'm not sure when it came out, but it was out before the game. And I think you understand why the guy averages 2 yards a catch. I mean, this is just career suicide. This is the second time he's done it. So, there's no doubt there's one common theme. It's him bitching about the teams after he's an unproductive player. I don't know why. Forget about not playing for the Chiefs. Why would somebody will give him a shot and see for nothing, league minimum? No one's going to give him real money now, are they, Eric?
No.
Okay.
I think the Chiefs are one of the rare teams that will take a chance on a guy like this, right? Like they've been the place where Kareem Hunt and Frank Clark and, they've been a place that's been welcoming to players who have had character issues. Andy has been a pretty tolerant guy. So if you can't make it work here, I don't think so.
Okay. All right. We've had yet more rumors of Andy Reid potentially considering retirement, which to me I'm interested in you, Jeff. You're the columnist. You're the writer. I heard the comments that Andy Reid made last year, which got turned into by some folks that he was considering. They said, "Hey, are you going to retire?" And he said, "Listen, I'm not talking about that now. I'll consider that at the end of the year." Andy Reid's considering retirement at the end of the year. That became his comment. His comment just said, "I do that at the end of the year. I consider that at the end." Andy Reid will consider retirement at the end of the year. He said nothing to the effect. I saw one of the comments where he's like, similarly, I worry about that at the end of the year. And yet, I think we're going to hear more of it because now there's only 2 teams to talk about for 2 weeks. And you got to find storylines. That's why I think Kadarius Toney's name is going to come up again over the next couple of weeks on a national level because guys got to write about something.
Yeah.
So to me, is that all this is? Limited storylines and guys got to write something? Or should there be concern from Chiefs fans?
I think people are trying to calculate and prognosticate how this is going to play out for him. Look, he's not going to coach Patrick Mahomes his entire career. Like, that is very clear. I don't think this stuff comes out of nowhere. Knowing Mike Florio, knowing Jay Glazer, like, they're not just going to be talking out of their ass. Like, someone has put that out there. Someone has mentioned it, maybe not in a very concrete kind of way, but it's like, if you look at it's just his recent history, man. He's, he had the health scare a couple years ago after a game where he had to hop in an ambulance and go get looked at by a doctor. He had the hose, the surgical hose he was wearing in training camp. Is the connection okay here, you guys?
Yeah, no, I had a blip too.
Okay, all right, okay.
It was me or you guys.
Yeah, but it really, it's like, Dennis Green died at, I think, 64, and he's a really, as far as weight, body type, he's very comparable to Andy. And I'm not trying to sit here and say Andy Reid's going to die tomorrow, whatever, but between his family losses, his kid being in jail, the success he's had, like, it would not shock me if in the next, maybe not this year, but next 2 or 3 years, he said, I'm done with this. Maybe in the fashion that Bruce Arians did when he left Tampa Bay, which is, I think he really wants whoever takes over the Chiefs to have a great situation and an opportunity to do some of the things that he's been able to do. And I could see a Matt Nagy, whoever it is, sitting there and waiting, having that opportunity. I think that means more to him than, hey, I got like 6-7 rings. I think he knows how long that would take. I think he knows how long it would take to chase down Belichick and George Halas. But I think that being where he's at, the things he's done, his resume is complete. I wouldn't be surprised if he left in a couple of years.
Okay. Eric, how big of a concern should it be here moving forward at the end of this year?
I kind of agree with the chat where I don't think he quits until he can't go anymore.
I agree. I don't.
What is that though?
I mean, I don't know if it's like I don't want to be morbid about it, but I don't think it's going to be that long. I don't think it's 10 years. Not like he's obviously a man who has significant wealth, so he can probably live longer than most people of his size. Controlling for everything, right? He's probably going to have a longer life than most, but I just don't think that a guy who sacrificed so much for the game is going to quit.
Yeah, I think he's in the Bear Bryant. I think he will coach till he physically can't. Now, physically can't could mean that the knee gets to a point that it's just so painful to walk upstairs or to get out to the practice field, or one day he can't get out of the way of somebody crashing into the sidelines or something. And, and I've talked to some people and I said, what do you put in? I said, what do you put into this? And the response I got was, unless this conversation's coming from Clark Hunt, I don't know who else would be talking about this. And I don't think Andy Reid would. I don't think Clark Hunt's talking to anybody, right? I don't think Clark Hunt's the leak in the Chiefs organization. No. And they said there was nothing in the building being talked about. Like Andy Reid was like, hey, get ready. This is my last year, the last go round. I don't buy it. I might be wrong.
But when do you see him leaving then? Like, what? It's generic to say, hey, wheels fall off. But like, what's realistic?
When he physically can't do it. And so what is he now? 65?
Yeah.
And to Eric's point, good. He's got good doctors all around him. He's got a whole team of doctors all around him, so he should get, good. I agree. I don't think he's 84 years old and coaching. I think probably I would guess, barring something like, I do think mobility is an issue because he's had knee surgeries and those kind of things. And I think if you can't get out to the practice field, I mean, I think there's a pride. Like, I don't think he's going to. I remember when Charlie Weiss was riding a scooter out on practice. Like, I don't think Andy Reid's going to do that. Like, I think I'm not going to say like he literally will be on his deathbed. That's not what I'm saying. If they're like, look, he had to ride a scooter for a week or two because he had some kind of cleanup surgery in his knee, he'd probably do it. But I don't think he's going to coach from a scooter. Yeah. I don't think. But so whenever that day arrives, that's when that'll be enough. Yeah. I don't think you
can put a number on it. Give me a year. I put a number on mine at least.
I mean, I would just have to look at what's the longevity of somebody at his size and weight, and with the surgeries he's had, and with the lack of sleep that he keeps. I agree with Eric, and Eric's done all kinds of thesis and things on medical stuff in the past in his background. But so I would lean to whatever Eric says. But I think good healthcare, great healthcare, immediately available, elongates it, but not sleeping much at all for 7 months backs it up. So probably a normal average 72.
I don't see him getting to 72 doing this.
Okay.
Yeah. That's just my take. I think once you get into an ambulance after a game, I think clock's ticking on your career.
That is a fair point. And maybe I'm just being wishful thinking. We'll see. All right. Don't forget, we're proudly brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. We'll be breaking down the matchups with the Chiefs and the Niners next week. All three of us headed to Las Vegas for the Super Bowl. So we will be talking a lot about the actual game next week. Don't forget, we're brought to you by Gann Asphalt and Concrete. Online at GannAsphalt.com. One contractor, all things parking lot. For Jeff Chadiha from NFL Network, Eric Eager from Super Sports, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.